Imagine sitting in a dark room at 2 in the morning, the only light coming from the cold, sterile glow of your phone screen as a brokerage app refreshes. You watch in total, paralyzed silence as the numbers on your retirement account drop faster and faster, finally hitting zero after a brutal after-hours sell-off. There is no broken glass, no yellow police tape, and no loud crash to wake the neighbors when a financial crime of this magnitude takes place. The life savings you worked 10 years to build simply vanish into thin air, stolen not by a masked thief, but by a flashing green arrow and a deceptive trend you trusted just a few days ago. That quiet, crushing moment of absolute loss is the final, inevitable stage of a carefully designed market system that feeds entirely on human hope and leaves only financial ruin behind. It is an engineered slaughter where institutional investors quietly secure their massive profits, using the deposits of everyday retail traders as their exit liquidity. This financial trap is spun like a microscopic spider web, relying on a single invisible thread to catch its prey, which is simple, unregulated human greed. A hot new tech stock, a heavily promoted meme company, or a trendy decentralized coin begins to climb, drawing in desperate eyes and borrowed money from every possible direction. The asset price shoots up into the sky, not because the underlying company manufactures a better product, secures a new patent, or earns more quarterly revenue, but simply because everyone else is blindly buying it. It creates a massive, unsustainable bubble of fake wealth, swelling larger and larger until the market capitalization can no longer hold its own weight. The dark psychological engine driving this destruction is a chilling virus of the mind recognized by behavioral economists as the fear of missing out. It creeps into the brain through constant digital exposure, whispering that you are being permanently left behind while everyone around you gets rich without even trying or possessing any financial literacy. This chilling fear is so powerful that it makes smart, careful professionals suddenly throw their entire life savings into digital assets and shell companies they do not even fundamentally understand. The deep, evolutionary need to belong to the winning tribe and the desperate hunger for an easy economic win completely blind them to the deadly, unhedged risk waiting just out of sight. Once that viral financial narrative takes root in the mind, the psychological trap snaps shut, and the victim becomes a willing, active player in their own eventual downfall. They begin to aggressively defend the very investment vehicle that is designed to drain their bank accounts, ignoring every flashing red flag and historical warning sign. The modern hype machine operates with cold, algorithmic precision to blow these temporary market trends wildly out of proportion across every social platform. Wild media stories and targeted influencer campaigns act like high-octane gasoline poured directly onto a sparking fire, turning a small, insignificant market ripple into a roaring, uncontrollable wave of retail speculation. The financial news networks broadcast the rising prices non-stop on their bottom tickers. Friends whisper about their massive overnight portfolio gains, and suddenly, a wildly risky derivatives bet looks like a guaranteed risk-free win. The entire financial ecosystem works together to make you feel fundamentally foolish for standing safely on the sidelines while the parade marches by. Then comes the dangerous point of no return, the shocking moment when pure herd mentality fully takes over the psychology of the trading crowd. Normal rules of money, like price-to-earnings ratios and basic risk management, are thrown completely out the window, and any seasoned analyst asking for caution is loudly mocked and laughed out of the digital room. You can feel the unsettling, manic shift in society as reckless, unhedged gambling is publicly celebrated as pure financial genius. People start impulsively quitting their stable jobs, borrowing heavily against the equity in their family homes, and betting their entire retirement future on a fleeting trend that has zero solid economic ground beneath it. This wild, feverish peak of irrational exuberance is exactly when the trap is most dangerous, pulling in the absolute last wave of vulnerable victims right before the floor falls out. It is the precise moment when the original promoters quietly execute their massive sell orders, triggering a cascading collapse that wipes out the latecomers in a matter of hours. Think back to a specific time when you felt that burning, undeniable urge to buy into a sudden market trend, just because every single person on your feed was doing it. Remember the tight, anxious feeling in your chest, the racing thoughts about impending wealth, and the heavy, suffocating pressure pushing you to act right now before it was permanently too late. That intense urgency is never an accident, but a highly weaponized psychological tactic used against you to bypass your common sense and force a rushed, emotional choice. Through artificial scarcity and flashing countdown timers, you are made to feel that if you wait even one more day to transfer your funds, the golden lottery ticket will be gone forever. Giving in to that manufactured algorithmic panic and executing the market order at the absolute peak is the exact moment the invisible thread pulls tight around your own money. The illusion of control shatters the second the chart turns red, locking your hard-earned capital inside a burning building with the exits firmly barred by institutional algorithms. But this silent, devastating theft of wealth is not a new modern crime born solely from the internet, cryptocurrency exchanges, or glowing phone screens. It is an ancient, brutal cycle of economic destruction that has played out time and time again across human history, from the Dutch Tulip Mania of 1637 to the catastrophic Wall Street crash of 1929. The heavy, devastating toll this cycle has taken across centuries is incredibly hard to measure, leaving countless families permanently ruined and massive, generational fortunes turned to dust in mere days. There is a profound, unsettling unease in realizing that despite all our modern analytical tools, the dark shadow of human greed still leads us blindly into the exact same traps. Step back in time to the early 1630s in the Netherlands. The Dutch Republic was astonishingly rich, flooded with gold and exotic spices from the Dutch East India Company. Citizens suddenly possessed massive amounts of disposable income, and they desperately wanted a place to park that capital so it could multiply. They were actively searching for the next big financial breakthrough, a secret mechanism to build their personal wealth faster than traditional commerce would allow. The cobblestone streets of Amsterdam were buzzing with seasoned merchants and amateur traders looking for a hidden edge in the global market. They no longer wanted slow, boring growth from standard shipping dividends. They wanted a fast track to unimaginable riches. This intense economic hunger created a perfect psychological trap, setting the historical stage for the first recorded time in human civilization, where an entire society collectively lost its mind over a simple, perishable plant. That desperate need for quick wealth turned a quiet, calculated trading port into a highly dangerous, unregulated gambling ring. Citizens abandoned physical goods to trade futures contracts, buying and selling the rights to harvests that had not even been planted yet. This reckless shift transformed standard commerce into pure speculation, where the actual product mattered far less than the thrill of the wager. The unlikely target of their massive financial obsession was the imported tulip, a strange biological anomaly, later identified as the tulip breaking virus, infected the flower bulbs and mutated their petals into beautiful, vividly broken stripes of contrasting color. Suddenly, these biologically sick flowers became the most highly prized luxury items in the entire country. It was no longer just wealthy aristocrats buying them to display in their private garden estates. Normal, working-class people were rapidly pulled into the escalating financial madness. Bakers, farmers, weavers, and shoemakers simply stopped doing their regular manual jobs to trade flower bulbs in dark, smoky tavern backrooms known as colleges. They watched their uneducated neighbors making easy, massive profits, and they could not stand the agonizing thought of being left behind. The psychological fear of missing out spread through the population significantly faster than the plant virus itself. They meticulously tracked the violently rising prices of these striped flowers on flimsy scraps of paper, mapping out massive fortunes that only truly existed in their own minds. This system became known as the wind trade, because no physical bulbs ever changed hands during the winter months. They were trading nothing but volatile promises, building a towering economic structure entirely out of thin air and collective delusion. Soon, the market prices reached a point of pure, undeniable insanity. Real historical records show desperate people legally signing over entire family estates, acres of highly productive farming land, and their entire accumulated life savings just to own one single, rare tulip bulb like the Semper Augustus. They eagerly traded fully furnished stone houses, carriages, and entire teams of horses for a fragile flower that would inevitably wither and die in a matter of weeks. Nobody actually cared about the botanical beauty of the flower itself anymore. They were playing a highly dangerous financial game now known as the greater fool theory, firmly believing they could always find someone else who would willingly pay an even higher, more ridiculous price. They bought the bulb exclusively to sell it to the next eager victim in line. It was a fragile chain of pure, unadulterated greed, and absolutely everyone thought they were smart enough to get out before the chain ultimately broke. But the music always stops, and the devastating end came with chilling speed in the first week of February 1637. It happened at a perfectly normal, everyday tavern auction in the small, quiet town of Haarlem. A confident seller held up a standard tulip bulb and boldly asked for the usual massive price of 1,250 guilders. He fully expected the crowd to fight over the bid just like they had the day before. For the first time in 3 years, the auction room was dead silent. The buyers simply refused to pay the asking price. In a single, terrifying heartbeat, the collective financial spell was permanently broken. Pure panic swept through the tavern room, then rapidly spread through the town, and then cascaded across the entire Dutch Republic. The horrifying realization hit the entire population all at once that they had traded their physical homes and livelihoods for completely worthless weeds. The sudden catastrophic market crash left a vast, devastating trail of ruined families and empty financial promises in its immediate wake. The Dutch courts quickly became overwhelmed with defaulted contracts, eventually ruling that these speculative debts were essentially gambling wagers and could not be legally enforced. Generational wealth evaporated into the cold winter air literally overnight, leaving thousands of previously wealthy citizens holding worthless pieces of paper. The most haunting part of this specific economic history is the profound psychological mystery it left behind for future generations. How exactly could an entire, highly educated nation completely lose its grip on fundamental financial reality? The people who lost absolutely everything were not inherently stupid or naive. They were hard-working, rational citizens who simply got caught in an incredibly powerful, invisible web of collective group thinking and unchecked greed. It serves as a chilling, permanent reminder of exactly how easily the human mind can be tricked by the surrounding crowd. When absolutely everyone around you is screaming that something is incredibly valuable, it takes massive psychological strength and discipline to step back and see the objective truth. The victims were completely blinded by the intoxicating promise of easy, effortless money, rendering them utterly unable to see the massive financial cliff waiting right in front of them. This dark, devastating chapter of financial history conclusively proved that the absolute greatest danger to our long-term money is very often our own irrational minds. The Dutch Tulip Mania established a terrifying behavioral blueprint for speculative market bubbles that would reliably repeat itself for centuries to come. The specific asset would constantly change, but the underlying psychological mechanics of human greed and panic would remain stubbornly hardwired into our brains. Fast forward more than 300 years to the late 1990s. The technological world had changed dramatically, but fundamental human nature remained exactly the same as it was in Amsterdam. A revolutionary new invention had arrived, and it boldly promised to change the global economy forever. The consumer internet was born with the launch of early web browsers, and to everyday investors, it felt exactly like a magic digital key to endless, unprecedented wealth. People stared intently at glowing computer screens with the exact same irrational hunger in their eyes as the Dutch flower traders from centuries ago. They genuinely believed the old, established rules of money, revenue, and corporate valuation no longer mattered in this digital frontier. A completely new economic era had officially started, and the pervasive narrative was that anyone who did not immediately jump into the market would be permanently left behind in the financial dust. Desperate retail investors and massive institutional funds alike poured billions of dollars into absolutely any startup company that had anything remotely to do with the World Wide Web. Traditional metrics like actual product sales, profit margins, and long-term business plans were completely thrown out the window. Venture capitalists blindly injected massive amounts of capital into unproven concepts, entirely based on the vague promise of capturing future internet traffic. The financial atmosphere on Wall Street was wild, chaotic, and deeply intoxicating. Young, inexperienced tech founders were becoming overnight billionaires on paper without their companies ever making a single dollar of real, tangible profit. All they practically had to do was add a .com suffix to the end of their corporate company name, and the investment money flowed into their bank accounts like an unstoppable, raging river. In the late 1990s, the financial atmosphere was thick with a wild, dizzying delusion that anyone could get rich overnight. Young founders, barely out of university dormitories, were suddenly minted as billionaires simply because they added a .com suffix to their corporate filings. It felt like an economic magic trick, a golden ticket handed out to anyone brave enough to grab it. You could almost taste the speculative wealth floating in the air, making seasoned Wall Street analysts forget everything they knew about hard work and actual revenue. But that sweet promise of easy internet money was hiding a dark and hollow secret beneath the digital surface. The foundation of this unprecedented economic boom was built entirely on vapor, masking a catastrophic structural rot that would soon tear through the global financial system with devastating force. Behind the bright screens and lavish Silicon Valley launch parties, the underlying truth was chilling. Most of these newly minted internet companies had absolutely no tangible products to sell to consumers. They possessed no steady revenue streams, yet they were burning through millions in venture capital every single month, drowning in massive, insurmountable debts just to keep their websites online. Yet, their stock prices on the NASDAQ exchange kept climbing higher and higher into the stratosphere. All the old safe rules of how to measure corporate growth, like price-to-earnings ratios and profit margins, were tossed completely out the window. Financial media stopped asking how a business actually generated cash and only cared about how much blind hype its marketing department could build. This manufactured hype reached right into quiet suburban neighborhoods and middle-class family homes. Everyday people, exhausted from struggling to pay their monthly utility bills, saw a seemingly guaranteed quick way out of their daily grind. They quit steady, safe factory and office jobs to sit isolated in their living rooms, staring obsessively at flashing computer screens. They transformed into amateur day traders, risking their hard-earned life savings over dial-up modems on tech companies they barely understood. The deep, human wish to finally be free from suffocating money worries pushed them to bet their entire financial futures on a flashing green line. They truly felt like they were finally outsmarting a financial game that had always been ruthlessly rigged against them. Those fragile living room dreams shattered permanently the exact moment the flashing green lines turned into a violent, endless sea of red. The illusion of infinite digital prosperity evaporated overnight, leaving behind a brutal reality check that would scar millions of retail investors for the rest of their lives. In March of 2000, the giant .com bubble finally burst with catastrophic force. The stock market went into a terrifying, uncontrollable freefall, dropping faster and deeper than any financial model thought possible. Blind panic swept through the country as those digital fortunes vanished into thin air, wiping out paper billionaires and factory workers alike. Nearly $5 trillion in market value were wiped out in a sudden, brutal flash. This was not just abstract mathematics on a broker terminal. It was real-life savings, fully funded college accounts, and decades of careful retirement plans burned entirely to ashes. Families who thought they were financially invincible were suddenly left holding absolutely nothing. The crushing weight of that sudden, inescapable poverty left an entire generation of investors wandering in a state of shock, wondering how they had been so easily and thoroughly fooled. The psychological trauma of losing everything completely rewired how these individuals viewed trust, authority, and the fundamental promise of the American financial system. Looking back through the lens of behavioral economics, the warning signs were flashing bright red the entire time. But a powerful, primal fear of missing out completely shuts down the logical alarm systems inside the human brain. When you watch your next-door neighbor get obscenely rich for doing absolutely nothing, visceral panic takes over your rational mind. You feel like you are being left behind in the dirt while everyone else gets invited to the exclusive party of the century. That deep, aching fear of social and financial isolation makes otherwise brilliant people do incredibly foolish things. Basic mathematical logic simply dies a quiet death when unbridled greed and social panic mix together in the human psyche. This uniquely toxic chemical mix in the brain has left behind a devastating trail of ruined lives and shattered economies across all of recorded human history. It is a fundamental flaw in our cognitive wiring that predators and speculative markets have exploited for centuries, turning our own biological impulses into weapons of financial mass destruction. There is a creepy, deeply unsettling mirror between those 17th century Dutch tulip bulbs and the shiny internet stocks of the new millennium. It is a dark, recurring mystery of human nature that we flatly refuse to learn any lasting lessons from the past. We keep stepping blindly into the exact same psychological trap over and over again, expecting a different outcome. The specific names of the speculative items change, and the technological tools we use to trade them get exponentially fancier. But the wild, irrational rush to get rich quick stays exactly the same across every generation. The frantic beating heart of human greed never alters its dangerous rhythm, no matter what era we happen to live in. Today, this ancient danger has grown even more terrifying and pervasive. We now carry the entire global financial internet in our pockets on our smartphones, granting us instant access to volatile global exchanges. We are directly connected to the merciless fluctuations of the market every single second of the day and night, leaving no room for rational pause. Because of this relentless, constant connection, a dangerous financial bubble does not take months or years to build up pressure anymore. It can swell to massive proportions and violently explode in a mere matter of hours. A single, unverified rumor on a social media forum can spread across the world in a heartbeat, dragging millions of retail investors into a devastating trap before they even wake up for their morning coffee. This modern lightning speed turns everyday investing into a deadly high-stakes casino game where ordinary people are almost always the ones who lose everything. The digital age has not democratized wealth. It has simply accelerated the brutal efficiency with which the market separates hopeful, desperate families from their hard-earned survival money. The modern financial trap is built directly inside the glowing screen of your smartphone. Social media platforms do not just show you random market trends. They carefully deploy advanced behavioral algorithms to study what makes you afraid of being left behind. They use complex computer programs developed by engineers to hunt for your psychological weak spots. These hidden digital systems flood your daily feed with highly curated stories of overnight riches. You see ordinary people buying an obscure digital coin or a viral meme stock and suddenly driving exotic sports cars. It is a calculated attack on your mind designed by data scientists to make you feel like everyone else is getting rich while you are stuck standing still. The endless scroll of fabricated success creates an isolated psychological dark room where financial logic simply goes to die. By bombarding your brain with dopamine triggers and artificial urgency, these platforms disable your critical thinking skills and force you into a state of permanent financial anxiety. While the general public is pushed into a blind panic to buy at the absolute top of the market, a quiet betrayal happens in the shadows of Wall Street. The institutional insiders who bought in early for pennies sit back and watch the retail frenzy reach its peak. They are known as the smart money, and they have a dark exit plan. As desperate everyday people pour their hard-earned life savings into the hot new investment vehicle, the insiders quietly sell millions of their own shares. They systematically hand over their fundamentally worthless digital tokens to the cheering retail crowd in exchange for real cash. It is a cold, strictly calculated transfer of wealth from the working class straight into the offshore bank accounts of the financial elite. You have to face a deeply unsettling truth about what you are actually doing when you buy into these engineered market hypes. You might call it active trading on your brokerage app, and you might tell your family you are building a secure future. But when you chase a hot trend because an anonymous influencer told you to, you are not investing. You are willingly walking into a rigged digital casino where the institutional house knows your every single move before you even make it. You are throwing your hard-earned money at a spinning speculative wheel. blindly hoping to jump out just before the momentum stops. It is pure, unadulterated gambling, dressed up in the sophisticated language of high finance to make you feel completely safe while you are systematically being robbed. The institutional dealer always wins this predatory game, leaving everyday retail players with entirely empty brokerage accounts and incredibly heavy hearts. The hidden platform fees, the massive spread on your market orders, and the sudden engineered price drops guarantee that the financial house extracts maximum profit from your quiet desperation. Eventually, the harsh light of economic reality always breaks through the carefully constructed illusion. The desperate new buyers finally stop coming, and the endless stream of fresh retail cash dries up completely across the exchange. This liquidity crisis is the exact moment the financial trap snaps shut with bone-crushing force on everyone still holding on to the worthless assets. Without genuine corporate revenue or real economic value holding the inflated price up, the first tiny crack appears in the market structure. Pure panic sets in significantly faster than the initial greed ever did. In a matter of 48 hours, the asset price falls straight off a cliff, instantly wiping out billions of dollars in fabricated market wealth and leaving nothing but digital dust behind. The trading screens flash bright red across millions of smartphones as the portfolio numbers crash straight down toward absolute zero. The trading halts kick in. The sell orders pile up without any buyers in sight, and the devastating reality of a total market collapse finally takes hold. When the market dust finally settles, the mainstream financial news networks quickly move on to broadcast the next big story, but the catastrophic human damage remains permanently embedded in the economy. Behind closed suburban doors, ordinary families are forced to face a devastating new reality. The hard-earned money they spent 10 long years saving in traditional bank accounts is simply gone, vanished into thin air. These ruined investors are the entirely silent victims of the modern financial hype machine. They are devastated parents who have to sit down and tell their teenagers that the dedicated college savings fund is now completely empty. They are tired grandparents who must put their steel-toed work boots back on because their entire retirement portfolio was lost on a reckless digital gamble. A heavy, incredibly quiet grief fills the living rooms of those who bought into the empty promise of effortless wealth. The profound psychological toll of a total financial wipeout destroys marriages, ruins long-standing friendships, and leaves a permanent scar of distrust that can last for multiple generations. The absolute only way to survive this endless cycle of engineered market traps is to completely embrace a very different, highly disciplined path. The real secret to keeping your money safe is never found in a viral social media video or an exclusive online chat room. True, lasting wealth building is slow, mathematically steady, and wonderfully boring. It means buying fractional pieces of real, established companies that manufacture physical products, provide vital services, and report actual quarterly profits. It means letting your money compound and grow quietly over decades, entirely ignoring the loud, chaotic noise of the daily market ticker. This incredibly steady approach lacks the immediate dopamine thrill of a gamble, but it remains the only historically proven way to build an impenetrable financial wall around your family. The slow and quiet financial road is the only one that actually leads to permanent economic safety. By removing raw human emotion from your daily investment decisions, you actively protect your capital from the predatory market forces that constantly seek to separate you from your hard-earned wages. To successfully walk this safe path, you must deploy the ultimate financial survival tactic, universally known as asset diversification. This is not some highly complex mathematical formula reserved exclusively for elite Wall Street bankers. It is the simple, life-saving economic rule of never putting all your financial hopes and all your investment capital into one single fragile market basket. To survive the brutal traps of the market, you must use the only armor that actually works. Think of spreading your money around like building a strong wall against a coming storm. You never put all your hopes into one fragile basket because when that single basket drops, everything you worked for shatters. Spreading out your risk is not just a math trick, it is a daily survival tactic that keeps you alive when a hot trend suddenly dies. The lasting scars from these market crashes forced leaders to change the rules forever. After thousands of families lost their life savings to empty internet promises, the government created strict new laws to watch over the market. These new rules were meant to force companies to tell the clear, hard truth about their money. But even with these heavy laws written in stone, the deep human urge to chase a fast fortune still finds a way to slip through the cracks. For the everyday workers caught in the middle, the damage went far beyond just numbers on a screen. Entire factory towns and quiet neighborhoods watched their shared retirement funds turn to dust overnight. Older men and women who had planned to finally rest after 40 years of hard labor found themselves putting on work uniforms once again. Their golden years were stolen, replaced by the grim reality of starting over when time was already running out. The shockwaves of these crashes changed how the entire world views risk. In the dark days of 2008 on the trading floors of New York, a single harsh truth became undeniable. The old belief that the market would always fix itself was proven completely wrong by the cold, hard records of bank failures. The system was not a safe machine, but a wild beast that could tear down the global economy in a matter of hours. Yet as we look back at the trail of ruined lives and broken promises, a chilling question remains wide open. Why do we keep walking blindly into the exact same traps, generation after generation? No chart, no history book, and no new law has ever fully explained why normal, smart people will gladly ignore all the warning signs just because everyone else is doing it. The mystery of our own deep greed remains completely unsolved. Today, the permanent result of this endless cycle is a deep, quiet lack of trust in the system itself. A massive shift has happened in how young people view their future, leading to the creation of hidden, digital money networks outside the normal banks. This massive push to invent new ways to trade is a direct reaction to the old, broken promises of Wall Street. Millions of people have decided that the traditional game is rigged, forever altering the landscape of how money moves across the globe. But in the end, it is always the small, hopeful families who pay the heaviest price when the dust finally settles. Behind every wild boom and sudden crash, there is a quiet, empty kitchen where a parent sits in the dark, trying to figure out how to feed their children tomorrow. In a quiet, dark room long after midnight, a single phone screen glows with the sharp green line of the next hot trend. A tired thumb hovers over the buy button, feeling the heavy, carefully engineered pull of a promised fortune. But just beneath that bright, gamified glass, the shadows of broken markets and empty bank accounts wait in the silence. Financial watchdogs at the Securities and Exchange Commission have tracked the brutal aftermath of these retail frenzies, documenting how the speculative surges of 2021 wiped billions of dollars from the accounts of amateur investors in a matter of hours. Behind the simple interface, high-frequency institutional algorithms are already executing thousands of trades per second, quietly securing their profits before triggering the inevitable crash. The real choice in that lonely moment is not about catching the wave of a sudden 200% spike. It is about understanding the cold mathematics of a liquidity trap and knowing exactly what financial devastation is waiting for you when the water finally pulls back.